We enter today 14-1, 2 weeks left here in the season, and have already clinched the number 1 seed. When I finished my recording last episode, I was planning on playing the Cowboys here in week 18, but there's actually a really good chance that we play the Cowboys in the divisional round just because they'll be a wildcard team. And if they're the only wildcard team that wins in round 1, they'll be our opponent. And I don't know if I want to have 2 episodes in a row against the Cowboys. And since these last 2 games don't really mean much for us, I think I would rather just quick sim these 2 games and we can talk more in depth about stats and awards and make that this episode. And so that's what we're going to do here with these last 2 weeks, starting here with the Houston Texans. And this is before CJ Stroud went crazy this season, and so he is still good, 83 overall star, but I don't know actually what Madden has updated his ratings to. I haven't looked at a live roster of Madden since the game came out pretty much, but I'm sure that he has vastly improved his rating with his incredible rookie year. Dameon Pierce also has probably had his ratings drop in return. Has not been a great season for him, has been injured lately, but had him on my fantasy team and he was not doing well. I'll just say that. So it looks like they are a better pass team than the run team, despite Dameon Pierce being the 93 overall superstar. So we will try to stop the short pass. We try to run the ball here, try to give a boost to the run game in these more times than not. So that's what we'll do this week as well. And we will get to simulating this Texans game. We have no injuries on offense. We do have 2 on defense, Barker and Lastly, so a couple of backups. Shouldn't be anything too crazy for us to deal with here. So without further ado, let's hop in and see if we end up 16-1, 14-3, or 15-2. Either way, number 1 seed for us. Undefeated season's out of the picture. If we were undefeated, I probably would have played the Cowboys game to, seal the deal on the undefeated season, but unfortunately, we are not. Taking a little bit of a preview at what Doug Odom's stats will look like roughly. Of course, still have 2 games to go, but we'll talk in depth about all these player stats at the end of the episode, and we'll talk about how I feel about all of them. Tough to do a lot of complaining when you're 14-1, but I don't think everyone was excellent. This is a very close ball game. Houston's defense doing a nice job making things difficult for us, but we do get the 2-score lead in the 4th. Houston makes this the game, but ultimately ends up looking a lot further apart than it was. This game was a 1-score game for really the majority. We didn't take a 2-score lead until the 4th quarter. So well fought by Houston here. This is the part of the franchise multiple years in the future with that young roster they have that you expect them to be a little bit tougher of a matchup, because they, like us, have a lot of their guys on an upward swing in their trajectory and their careers on the roster. So let's take a look at the player stats for our Black Knights. 17-23 for 221, 2 touchdowns and a pick for Cohen. We got 17 for 77, 13 attempts for Kershaw. He got it across the end zone. Ladarius Townsend also getting some work in. Odom had a 100-yard game here and a touchdown. Campbell, not much on the yardage front, but he did haul in a touchdown. Bullock's 50 yards. No sacks allowed. Can we please get the trench boost scenario? We haven't had it at all this entire series, man. That helps so much in building a good offensive line. It's been really annoying that we haven't been able to get it. Cowan forced a fumble in this game. So there you have it. 31-14, the victory, bringing us to 15-1, man. The turnaround was very quick on this team. We went from no playoffs, but a 4-win streak last year to pretty much carrying out that win streak for the majority of this year. I thought we would be pretty good this year. I thought we would push for a playoff spot. Honestly, I did not think we would be the best team in the league. We get immovable object, but not trench boost, just out of protest for not giving us trench boost despite not allowing us sack in 2 straight weeks. I'm not doing that. How do we not have trench boost, man? I get it like every season when your team is good, and then we don't get it this year. I think this is fine. Do this. Although running the ball on this interior defensive line is ridiculous. I think the biggest threat to us not winning the Super Bowl this year is the Dallas Cowboys. If I'm being honest, that defensive line is absolutely ridiculous. And it's my fault that it's as ridiculous as it is. That does not make it any less ridiculous. So we'll see how this game goes. Beat them earlier on in the year. The first half was very competitive, very fun. And the second half was fun too, but in a different way because we definitely pulled away from them in the second. Now we're on the road though. And I imagine neither team really needs this game. I imagine that the Cowboys have the 5th seed locked down while we have the 1st. So a pretty meaningless game. Don't know if it's going to provide much preview for the playoffs, but here we have it. A division rivalry nonetheless. You always want to beat a division opponent, and our team is starting to really struggle here in this simulation. I'm starting to think run inside is not the way for simulation here. And we're gonna lose a 7-6 ball game, man. No touchdowns, 2 field goals. This is the kind of game you expect from a team, from just a game where neither team really needs it at all. Just low scoring. Probably neither team brought their best or really tried that hard. I'm assuming, in real life there would have been a lot of starters sat here. I didn't do it this time around. 300 yards for Cohen here, but of course no touchdowns because we didn't score any. 63 yards for Campbell, 73 for Bullock, 77 for Odom. Williams had a solid outing as well. We did allow 2 sacks, so even if we did get trench boost, actually we allowed 3, it wouldn't have really given us much of a boost. 5 TFLs total, 2 sacks, no picks, no turnovers forced. So we held them to 7, but it was not due to turnovers. It was just due to our defense playing well. And the same can be said for them because we didn't turn it over either. A 7-6 ball game with no turnovers is pretty impressive. Got a pretty long list here of upgrades. Let's get to them. Keontae Simmons. We're going to go with hybrid here. Finally, we get to do one that's not run support. 2-man coverage in a zone. Liking that. Malik Vincent. We'll do, let's see what his ratings are. 88 man, 81 zone. I think a little bit extra zone. We don't run it often, and it's mostly because a lot of our players are so much better at man than zone. If it was a little bit more balanced, I'd run it a little bit more. Although, to be honest, man coverage is the better coverage in Madden 24. And so, even if our players did have more zone coverage on average, I'd still be running a lot of man. And here for Cohen, I think just working on accuracies, honestly, is the way to go. So we'll do some field general. His accuracy has improved a lot, but it's not perfect yet. So if we could get it to that perfect mark, I'd be pretty happy with that. Lambert, do we try to just get him as a specialty player who's great at power moves? Yeah, let's do that. It's going to also help him get to 85 overall faster, which unlocks some upgrades for him. Plus 2 power moves. With his boost now to 90 and getting that 5th pass rush bar ahead of the playoffs is pretty good. Campbell, I think, I've been doing a lot of deep threat for him because he didn't have a lot of deep threat abilities. Those abilities are definitely catching up as he gets released now into the 80s. Wasn't his strong suit coming out. Nicely done there. Tony Dawson, best kicker in the league. There's 99 kick power and 92 accuracy. Gaffney here, I think, is a good power rush upgrade candidate. +2 power moves, nice. Our power move upgrades are actually giving us power move. I feel like I get screwed over with that often in this game. Brady Trout looking to get that run block finesse. He keeps going up one overall at a time. That's what we're looking for, baby. We'll go elusive here for Kershaw. Hoping really for speed upgrades. He gets an acceleration. Stewart, I think we've upgraded him 2 zone in a row without getting any zone. And we get 1 here. What a ridiculous upgrade, man. Earl Clark, all he does is play 3-4 and 4-4. So all we want him to do is stop the run. And I think Emerson's technically a starter, though he hardly ever plays, so we'll upgrade him. It's a kick power. He's up to 99. Both of our kicker and punter have 99 kick power. I will say, kick power is way too easy to upgrade in this game. Way too easy to upgrade. So that will end the regular season for us. And what we're going to do now is take a look at stats and awards for both our team and around the league. Let's hop into it. Starting with the quarterback position, Tyson Cohen was very much so improved here in season 2. His yards up by over 1,000, touchdowns up by 7, interceptions cut in half, completion percentage up 7%, and a rating increase of 26. His improvement, there was a comment on the last episode talking about his improvement, and it's one of the top 3, if not the #1 reason that our team improved from last year to this. Having a quarterback that actually throws the ball where you're wanting him to throw it, turns out that makes a big difference in having a good offense, and he was much better. You know, towards the end of last year, I was debating whether to take a quarterback because it wasn't a great year from Cohen, but I knew that a lot of it was just his morale. We had a terrible start to the year. It tanks morale, and that all of his accuracies were going to get a free, 3 to 4 to maybe even 5 upgrade when his morale reset. And turns out that was a massive reset, and it helped him have this year. Not an amazing year. Like 26 touchdowns isn't something incredible. Once we got into the red zone, the run game was really how we were punching in a lot. You're going to see a lot of touchdowns on the running side here, but just, I think overall, a really, really good season from Tyson Cohen. Running the ball, he did put across 3 touchdowns as well. Didn't have any in his rookie season, so better there as well. Rushing now, yeah, you're going to see a lot of touchdowns here. Alford gets over 1,000 yards, still under 4 yards to carry. I think part of that is due to the fact that our division is insane at the defensive tackle position. We might have the 3 best interior defensive line rooms in all of football as our division countermates. And then I could argue that maybe we're even there at number 4. Like, defensive tackle at this division is just absolutely insane. So average didn't really go up much, but he got the ball 30 more times, scored a lot more. That's just a factor of being in a much better offense this year. Didn't fumble the ball at all. So he, to me, is just a very solid, replaceable power back. Been at that normal dev, but his ratings are solid and he plays well. Occasionally will break open a good run, but a lot of his runs are these 3 and 4 yard runs, hence the average. And so don't have a problem with Alford. Also wouldn't have a problem with replacing him. Same can be said for Kershaw. His average is always much higher, but that's because I think Madden, it's always been easier in Madden to spread the defense out and run it than it is to run from tighter packages. I won't say always, but oftentimes it is. and you'll especially get more of the big runs doing it that way. And so I think that's just a factor of not necessarily Kershaw being better than Alford, although I will say it's a lot easier for me to change direction with Kershaw and kind of follow my eyes and find the holes that are continuing to shift downfield. The change of direction in Alford definitely kind of hurts him a little bit, but overall solid with Kershaw. His touchdowns also doubled. Again, just that's what being in a better offense looks like. Already saw that Cohen had 3, Townsend had 2 in simulation, Fowler had 2 touchdowns. He was not as involved this year as he was last year, and it's not out of lack of trying. It's just, I mean, he only carried the ball 2 times less. It's just he had 2 less touchdowns. Felt like teams were more ready for Fowler this year than last year. I'll say that. Doug Odom here. Breakout season from Doug Odom. Turns out having a good quarterback helps you be an excellent receiver. 5 more receptions compared to last year, but an extra 200 yards nearly, an extra 4 touchdowns, averaged 10 more yards per game, and Odom is really the centerpiece of this offense. Everything I do is really centered around Doug Odom. It's not around the run game, although we do try to run the ball a lot. It's all about getting Doug Odom favorable matchups and getting him the ball, because when we successfully get Doug Odom the ball, we have good games offensively. It's pretty much a 1-to-1 ratio. And we got the Doug Odom the ball a lot, and thus we had a lot of good offensive games. Campbell also much improved from last year. I think his improvement is even bigger. That's just the product again of a better offense, more plays, more opportunities. Campbell ends up with 76 receptions, 1,200 yards, averaged 72 a game, had 7 touchdowns as well. That's up 500 yards nearly from last season. Not only, of course, did he develop because he's in his 2nd year, but his quarterback developed with him. And once the quarterback starts hitting those receivers, turns out they can play pretty well. Dalton Bullock's in his rookie season, 761 yards for a rookie tight end, especially one that was out for several weeks, is pretty good. Didn't get as many of the touchdowns as I think you would have guessed him to get. They just went to his receivers, and they also went a ton to the running game. But there you have it. I mean, Bonner, you could say his 1 touchdown would have gone to Bullock's pretty easily here. And Alford picked up a receiving touchdown. And then Fowler, of course, got 1 as well. We try to get that fullback involved. Sacks allowed. Nobody hit double digits this year. Pretty excellent. Nance had 8. He's really a guard that we converted to tackle for his superstar dev. And so don't mind him leading us with 8. His pass blocking is looking much better. We keep putting pass protector onto him, and it's looking pretty good. And so I think he's right on the cusp of becoming really good. A lot of these upgrades are slow for offensive linemen, especially if you never get the trench boost, which I know I've already complained about in this episode, but I'm gonna keep doing it. It's an incredible upgrade scenario. It's my favorite in the whole game, and the game just refuses to give it to us in this series for some reason. Now let's flip over to the defensive side of the football, where this unit was insanely dominant this season. The least productive year for Jamal Arnaut. He did miss 1 game because of a scenario, but just because he didn't rack up as many tackles isn't an indictment on him. I don't think it tracks snaps, but I'm sure it was just due to snaps. Again, less defensive stats is a product of good offense. Our offense was on the field a lot more of the season than they have been in his previous 2 years. Still thought he was just as good, just as consistent as he always has been, which is insanely good and insanely efficient. You rarely get somebody to leave his grasp. 3.5 sacks, 2 picks, 10 deflections, 1 forced fumble, and an absolute playmaker. He combines being an excellent playmaker with being a really solid and consistent player. We've always had somebody that's done one or the other in our previous Madden series. Until Madden 24, we had never had a linebacker do both. Now we have two that can do both. Dwayne Cowan is honestly not much further behind Arnaud in terms of being an impactful player. Again, total tackles is down. Not an indictment of him. Put him at edge rusher. He had 10.5 sacks rushing from the edge in the dime formation for us, which is absolutely insane. This is a middle linebacker getting in the double digits of sacks. Cowan is one of the more fun players I think I've ever had in Madden. Shout out to the comment that opened my eyes to the fact that he could rush the passer, because having him as the edge rusher in dime package is absolutely awesome and has been a joy to see and occasionally use her as well. 2 picks for him, 7 deflections, 3 forced fumbles on the year. You could argue at least this year he was the bigger playmaker than Arnaud, and I wouldn't argue against that, although I will say Arnaud's a little bit more consistent. You do see Cowan occasionally miss stuff, but it's not nearly often enough for it to be a problem. Keontae Simmons was a baller this year. Holy, I thought first year was kind of a problem, but these last 2 years, he has become a problem for the offense. 11 interceptions over these last 2 years. Didn't get to the quarterback, didn't really blitz him. Didn't feel the need to blitz this year very much because I felt like our secondary was so dominant and our defensive line was getting there enough. Double digits in deflections, also forced a fumble. He's forced a fumble every single season, though just one each time. Anthony Torrance, I will say last year, he was without a doubt the best corner on the team. I think Malik Vincent closed the gap this year. But that being said, I don't think it was Anthony Torrance's fault. I thought it was credit to Malik Vincent. So I think we have two honestly really good corner ones. He has 9 interceptions through the first 2 seasons of his career. As mentioned, Malik Vincent, excellent season. He was somebody that I thought was playing more like a corner 2 his first 2 years, especially year 2. Like I said, Anthony Torrance really took a lot of the CB1 shine from him. He came back this year and said, no, this is an elite corner duo, not just an elite corner with a good corner 2. 2 forced fumbles as well, along with his 6 picks. Just an absolutely elite playmaking corner this year. Forcing 8 turnovers is awesome stuff. Troy Stewart, did not hear a lot from him. Wasn't expecting him to have a big rookie year because, of course, he was the big 6'4" man coverage corner coming out of the draft. And I really wanted him to get playing time because he was a hidden dev player. And he's just not a great zone player. Of course, we still play a lot of man, so we will get man opportunities occasionally. But for the most part, he was playing zone. And he just needs some time to develop that. I don't think he was a problem for us at all, but I don't think he was much of a playmaker. Hopefully in the future seasons that can change. Dakota Rich, of course, played strong safety whenever Keontae Simmons went to the slot. And for the most part in his first 3 years, I would say he's been pretty good, but man, oh man, if he wasn't picked on at times this year, and kind of the fact that he's our lowest rated player with normal dev kind of showed up at times this year. That doesn't mean I think Dakota Rich is an absolute, terrible player that will keep us from going where we need to go, but I do think he is. If I had to poke a liability in the defense, it is Dakota Rich. Hadn't showed up until this season, but once you get an elite unit, offenses are forced to find the one thing, that they can pick on, and unfortunately for Dakota Rich, it was him. Starting to talk now about the defensive line. Jalen Randall here with 9 sacks on the year. And I think he was really similar to the last year. I was hoping maybe we could have a breakout from him, but it didn't really happen. That being said, I think he's really solid edge. You're hoping, when you take a top pick on an edge player, that it's one of those dominant players. Hasn't happened for him yet, but I still think, he's somebody that I'm confident can get the job done in big spots. And 18.5 sacks through your first 2 years is still really, really solid. Not down on him at all. I still think he can have that breakout season and become one of the better edge rushers in the NFL. Just needs a little bit of time. Bobby Lambert here, our other edge player. I think he had his best season. At least rushing the passer. I saw him. I don't use Bobby Lambert a ton, so a lot of these sacks are just him putting in work. And sometimes it's me winning a rep with another defensive lineman and forcing the quarterback to roll into Bobby Lambert. But hey, he still got off his block and he was there with contain in those situations. His lowest in TFLs, but I think that's not really a problem. Also had his first career pick, so good for him. And been a really solid pick for us. Next up, Ramon Gaffney, 8 sacks as a rookie interior defensive lineman, puts you in pretty elite company. Fourth in sacks for us this year because of Dwayne Cowan. But among our defensive linemen, he was 3rd behind our edge rushers as a rookie. Really liked him. I liked using him. I liked what he did when he wasn't being used. Very high on that first round pick. Blocked it to a field goal too. Nice. And then we've got Warren Owens, who stats wise, not gonna be his best year, but I don't think that's his fault. I think it's just the fact that everyone around him's better and he's a little bit slow. And so sometimes he doesn't quite get there. Still awesome to user. I think he's a great anchor in the run game. By far his least productive season. But again, I don't think I saw, a big dip in the play of Warren Owens. It's just you get better players around you and you got to start sharing the stats a little bit. He also blocked a field goal, it looks like. Nice. I guess it could be a punt. You never know. And then other than that, Earl Clark, of course, only plays in base formation, so not a ton of playing time from him. But, 350-pound run stopper. He is what he is, and I like what he is. 34 of 35 for Tony Dawson. He continues to be an absolutely insane kicker. His career, he's missed 3 kicks in 3 seasons in his career, and he's attempted, let's see, that's 67 plus 18 is 85. So he's missed 3 out of 85. Yeah, that's absolutely insane. He's hit some in the 60s. I mean, just an insane player. I think he's missed 1 short one. I think it was probably me that did it. And then he's missed a couple long ones, 1 each of these seasons. But insane kicker. And then George Amerson, average of 51. I gotta believe that's his best. Maybe not though. Oh, this is his rookie year. We changed punters. Forgot about that. So, solid year for him. Now, no return touchdowns for us this year, I'm pretty sure. Nope. Let's go ahead and take a look at the league itself and see how things shook up. So Cohen ends up being 2nd in the league in yardage, behind only Patrick Mahomes. Yeah, turns out he's a pretty good quarterback. So being right up there with him, just 7 yards behind, with the next guy being 200 yards behind Cohen. Pretty good company to keep. However, touchdowns, he's not going to be that high. Again, when we got in the red zone, it was the running game that put a lot of our stuff in. So not even going to be top 10 there, but Mahomes leading in yardage and touchdowns. Probably a good case for MVP. Allen didn't have a ton of yards, but 37 touchdowns to 5 picks is pretty insane. Who led the league in interceptions? It was Christian Sharp for the Jets. I know Pruitt also got 20 plus. A lot of these, generated rookie guys. And then Trey Lance is the highest of all the real players. Leading the NFL in yardage was Bijan Robinson with Jonathan Taylor, Derrick Henry, Javonte Williams running out your top. That's top 4. Top 5 would be Josh Jacobs. And then touchdowns, Jonathan Taylor led there. Good offensive player of the year case there. Jacobs behind him, Mixon as well, with Alford there, 4th in the league. and then a few guys tied for 5th. Receiving yards, Allen Doug Odom is your #1 receiver in the NFL by a wide margin, nearly 200 yards. Absolutely was slaying. Not going to get the Triple Crown though, because he had a few guys get more catches than him, including 2 Kansas City Chiefs players that he was throwing to his wide receiver 1 and his tight end, and that was it. And it worked really well for them. So you can't really blame them much at all. Touchdowns wise, Teddy Watford ends up with the lead, and so he only gets leadage in yards, but he was 3rd in receptions, 2nd in touchdowns, 1st in yards. Yeah, pretty elite year from Doug Odom. And then 1,200 yards from Campbell was 5th as well. So we had 2 top 5 players. Excuse me. So pretty elite receiving year for our 2 players. We got down the field mostly using the pass game, and then we punched it in with the run game. That was our offensive strategy. Riley Gowan allowed the most sacks. Tyler Smith, Mekhi Becton, Jedrick Wills, a few guys right up there. Defensively, leading in tackles was Zaven Collins. This is right where we see Arnaud in previous years. I wonder how bad the Cardinals offense was. TFLs wise, Micah Parsons. My flipping goodness, dude. Holy crap. 29 TFLs, 19 sacks. Good night. Good night, sir. Holy, Von Miller right there in sacks, but only half the TFLs. How is Von Miller still kicking it? At 37 years old with 19 sacks, dude. What a flipping goat. Pretty big drop off after that. Interceptions wise, Marshawn Lattimore. Holy F. We had 2 guys tied for 2nd place, but Marshawn Lattimore. So I imagine probably Keontae Simmons wins DB of the year for the AFC. Oh no, we're in the NFC. What am I talking about? So yeah, Marshawn Lattimore is going to get it over. So I think that will be 2 consecutive years. Keontae Simmons will probably get 2nd place. And Dawson had 14 more field goal makes than anybody else. Don't love that. It means we weren't finishing drives a bunch, but it is what it is. Average wise, not gonna be great, but we don't punt that often, so I'm not too worried about it. Team stats. We had the most offensive yards in the league by just under 100. Passing wise, 2nd. We already saw that. Rushing wise, we were pretty league average rushing. Points per game, #1 in the league. The only team to score 30 plus. Passing touchdowns were not going to be all that much, but rushing touchdowns more than anybody in the league. First downs, 1 more than Kansas City. Defensively, in terms of yards, we're not going to actually be that high. We're pretty middle of the pack there, but allowing passing yards, we allowed the 2nd most. Teams were behind on us, so they passed the ball a ton. That's just how it's going to work. Conversely, we're going to be the 3rd best against the run because, again, people are behind on us. They don't run as much. Points wise, we were still a top 10 in points. So overall, really good. We just allowed a lot of passing yards because people kept passing it on us. Sacks. We had the 4th most sacks in the league. We forced the 2nd most fumbles, tied with the Niners. And interceptions, #1 in the NFL. Yes, they were passing a lot on us, but we were taking the ball away as a result. And there you have it for stats and awards. The last thing I want to do here in this episode is to see who we are playing in the divisional round. Of course, have that 1st round bye. Likely going to be one of the 49ers or Cowboys. Those are 2 really tough teams. Could be the Eagles, could be the Vikings as well. So those are our 4 options. Not going to play the Carolina Panthers or the Green Bay Packers guaranteed. I think there's a good chance it actually might be Philly. I think Philly can easily beat Green Bay. Don't know much about the Panthers and Vikings rosters, but just based on their win-loss record, I would imagine at least Carolina makes it. So let's see who our divisional round matchup is. We might play like Eagles, then Cowboys, and just have an insane NFC East this year. Who will it be that we will play for our first ever postseason game? It is the Philadelphia Eagles. They're the only team that's beaten us this year. We got our revenge by blowing them out last time. The Cowboys are also still in it. It could be an NFC East gauntlet to the Super Bowl this offseason, this postseason, which would not surprise me at all. The Cowboys spanked the Niners. Eagles eked one out over the Packers, excuse me. And the Panthers actually, it was a pretty close game there with the Vikings. Saw the 2-seed advance, the 3-seed advance, and the 5-seed advance in the AFC. And then the Baltimore Ravens had the bye. So, got to prepare ourselves for matchup number 3 against the Philadelphia Eagles next time out. Found the way to beat them last episode. Put it to them pretty good, but they're also the only team that knows how to beat us this year, except for, of course, the Cowboys in the game that doesn't matter. But when the season actually mattered, the Eagles were the only team that beat us. And they're, of course, going to be looking to do it again. But hopefully we can keep that from happening, of course. That will be in the next episode, which will be coming out soon. And I will see you then.